so it has been good. And as I thought about this, old friends, new faces, there seems to be like one unifying theme. And it came out yesterday as I was talking to you guys about that traumatic story where I was in a haunted house and I started crying. And it seems like that one unifying theme is that it doesn't matter if you're an old friend or a new face. Y'all are mean, man. Y'all making fun of me yesterday. Kyron's back there and he's called me crybaby all afternoon. So it seems like the one thing that you guys heard yesterday was that I cried in a haunted house. So if anything this week, I hope that's not what you remember. But it is a traumatic story. I'm still working through it, but I'm glad that you guys are praying through that with me and making fun of me through the process. So I appreciate that. But I'm excited for today. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for this message. As I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking about just this week as we've talked about some of the things that God's doing in my heart and some of the things that I wish somebody would have shared with me when I was growing up and something that I wish I would have had the boldness and the courage to do as spiritual life director when I was here. And today, I think is a message that many of us need to hear. It's a message that we need to be empowered with. We start talking about living the best possible life. Somehow we think that's separated from what God has for us. So we really don't want to go to hell, so we're going to believe in Jesus Christ. But somewhere we forget John 10:10, where he says, I have come that they might have life and life to the fullest. And I'm promising you, and I'm telling you guys, if you're looking for something, and I know all of you are looking for something, if you're looking for joy and satisfaction and you're trying to get through the day, some of you are here this morning and you're depressed and you're hopeless. And I'm telling you, it's not found in the things of this world. Not that they are bad, but just that they are very short-sighted. They will only get you so far. And if you're looking for something that's going to be permanent, something that's going to last, I'm telling you, it's found in a personal relationship with Jesus. I know that's cliche. I know that's PCS. I know you've heard that before, but I'm not asking you to tell me if you've heard me before. I'm asking you if you've tried it. Because there is a big difference from putting the answer down on the test and actually doing something with what you've been told. And this morning, I want to challenge you with it. And I want to really go across this one idea this morning. And I guess I would say this, if we're going to talk about something this morning, it would be this, that many of us struggle with self-doubt. Many of us struggle with hatred towards ourselves. Many of us are extremely insecure. That's a banner for high school, is that people struggle with insecurity. And I know right now you're probably thinking yourself, or you're probably thinking of somebody else, but you know what you're probably really thinking about is the person that you're like, I know that person's not insecure. I've met that person before. They are so cocky. They are so arrogant. They have everything going for them. They are probably the least insecure person in the world. And I will tell you this, across the board, almost 100% of the time, that is probably the most insecure person in the school. Because we all struggle with insecurities. We all struggle with what we think that we are not good enough and God has not given us enough. And what I want to tell you this morning is this, that the greatest determiner and also the greatest deterrent in your life is you. See, we like to think it's these outside forces. Well, if I went to a different school, then everything would be okay. Or if I had a different friend group, then everything would be okay. Or if I was a little bit prettier, I was a little bit smarter, I was a little bit more athletic. If I were just a little bit more, then everything would be okay. And what I would tell you this morning is that it doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter who your friends are, it doesn't matter what relationship you're in. The greatest determiner and the greatest deterrent in your life is you. You are the person that determines the life that you have because you have the most control of your life. And yet many times we believe that it's outside forces, and yet it's something inside of us that determines. The thoughts that you think determine the person you become. The thoughts that you choose to think on a daily basis determine the person you become. It's not the people around you. It's not your teachers. It's not your coaches. It's not your parents. It's not your friends. It's you. You are the biggest determiner. And yet many of us, you're the biggest deterrent. And this morning I want to look at this idea, and I want to look at the story of King Saul. King Saul is a great story of a guy that missed it. We look in 1 Samuel, and it tells the story about the first king of Israel. Now, just let me give you a quick backdrop to this, a little history. Israel was what we call a theocratic nation. A theocratic nation. What that meant was that God was their king. God was their ruler. They were the only nation during this time that was theocratic. We're a democratic nation, of the people, by the people, for the people. But most nations back there, they were autocratic, which means that they had a king or a ruler or a dictator. And Israel didn't like that God was their king because they were like, we can't touch him, we can't talk to him, we can't see him, we have to wait for messages from prophets. So we want to be just like everybody else. We want to have a king who we can see and we can touch and we can experience. We want to be a part and we want to be just like everybody else. Prophet Samuel comes to the people of Israel and he says, listen, you need to understand this one thing. Here's what you need to understand. If you have a king, He will tax you. He will take your money. He will take your land. He will have slaves and servants. You will build him big palaces. Also, he will not make the best decisions for you. So you don't really want a king that you can touch and see. You want God to be your king. But Israel was hell-bent on making sure that their king was King Saul. And Saul was the man that was selected by God. He was selected by Samuel. He was selected by the people. He was better than everybody else. He was taller than everybody else. And yet God selected him. And yet Saul didn't believe the call that was on his life. No matter what people told Saul, no matter how many people said, Saul, you're the guy. You're good enough. God's chosen you. We want you as king. Saul could not determine that he was good enough. You see, Saul's greatest determiner and his greatest deterrent was himself. And it's the same for you. When I was a young kid, I wanted to do one of two things. When I was growing up very young, 4 or 5 years old, I remember that I wanted to either be a pastor or I wanted to be in business. And I remember that I was in my room when I was growing up, and I used to record sermons. We used to have these tape recorders, and it was really crazy because you couldn't just hit record, but you had to hit play and record at the exact same time. If you missed it, you didn't record it. I would try to record, and I would read through the Bible, and I always had this vision that someday I would be in a position like this where I could preach and I could teach God's word, because I just always wanted to do this. But something deep inside of me just said, you're not good enough. There's no way that a group of people are going to listen to you. You're just a kid from East Peoria. You're just a kid from the Paris family. You're just a kid that hasn't done much, isn't going to do much. And so there's no reason to dream about this because you're not good enough. And some of you are here this morning, you're thinking, you know what, I got this vision, I got this dream, I got all of these things what I want to do. And I'm real honest, I'm not going to do it because I'm just not good enough. I'm just a kid from Peoria, Illinois. I went to the small Christian high school in Peoria. Nobody's going to hire me. Nobody's going to select me. There's no way I'm going to do anything. I'll probably live in Peoria the rest of my life, and I'll probably just stay here because that's just my story. And the Lord has just continued to give me opportunities after opportunities, and He's just continued to remind me that, no, I've called you to something. I've put a vision and a cast in your life because I believe there's something I want you to do. My sophomore year of college, I was home for the summer, and I was working at a golf course, and I got a phone call. It was a Saturday night, and it was a local FCA director, and he calls me and he says, hey, we got a camp, and it starts tomorrow, and we need a leader, and I thought of you. And I thought, well, you thought of me because camp starts tomorrow. Like, you just need somebody. And so I said, well, I think I can go. And so I went to this camp, and I really just didn't think much of it. I mean, here I'm just this kid. I'm not even in ministry. I've got no training. I'm not going to be able to impact these kids. What am I going to say to these kids that's going to help them? And I remember we went through this camp, and I was teaching basketball, and we were playing in this court, and I was building these relationships with a lot of these kids from the inner city. They'd come down to this camp, and it was a great experience, and we were having some really cool conversations. These kids, many of them are not Christians, and the ones that were Christians had very little understanding of what it meant to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And so I just started pouring into these kids, but the week ended, and I thought to myself, I haven't made an impact on anybody. There's nobody here that has gotten closer to Christ. There's nobody here that's met Jesus Christ. I did nothing this weekend. I made no dent into the kingdom of heaven. I was not faithful. But what would I expect? I'm just a kid from East Peoria. I'm just a kid from the Paris family. There's nothing that I'm going to do. And a month goes by, and 2 months go by, and a year goes by. And these kids would call me, and we'd sporadically talk to each other, and I would encourage them. But once again, I wasn't making an impact in their life. It wasn't until 7 years later I was over at the middle school. I was on game duty. And I was walking downstairs because I had to use the restroom. I had to go to my classroom. And as I'm walking downstairs, my phone rings. And it's a number that I'd never seen before. And so most of the time I don't pick up those numbers because, sometimes it's like angry parents are like, you're a terrible teacher. And I'm like, I don't know you, so I didn't want to talk to them. But for whatever reason, I picked up the phone. And I said, hey, this is Joe. And you could hear this little rasping voice on the other end. Kid seemed really, really nervous to talk to me. He says, hey, my name's Michael. Says, 7 years ago, you were at an FCA camp. And he goes, do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, of course I remember you, Michael. I was like, you're the guy with arms and legs. And I was like, I remember you. I was like, I didn't remember this kid from anything. And Michael says, I just want to tell you my story real quick. He says, I went to camp, and I listened to everything that you told me, and it was like you were speaking to me. It felt like you were talking to me. And, I left camp, and I tried to do the things that you told me, and I tried to be a follower of Jesus Christ, but I struggled, and I got into some drug abuse, and then I got caught with drugs, and so they sent me to juvenile detention. And I just got out of juvenile detention a couple days ago. And when I got back, I knew this wasn't the person that I was supposed to be. I knew this wasn't the life that I was supposed to live. I knew that God had something more for me. And so I went up into my attic because I remembered at camp that you had given me a Bible. And in this Bible, you had written down your name. And underneath your name, you had written down your phone number. And so I called this number. It was actually my parents' number. And your parents, they gave me your cell phone because I just wanted to talk to you, because I just wanted to tell you that I was going to follow Jesus. And I remember sitting there thinking, I had no idea how God was going to use me. And neither do you guys. You have no idea. See, you think that you're just here, and you think that you're not impacting anybody in the school. You don't think that you're impacting people around you. You don't think that you're impacting the people who are watching you every single day, and they're just watching to see what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. You have no idea the way that God wants to use you. And yet many of you think that you're not good enough because you're not smart enough, because you're not articulate enough, because you're not influential enough. Most of you, if I asked you in an honest moment, are you a leader? Are you an influencer? Most of you, if not all of you, would say no. And yet every single one of you has influence on somebody. You may not be the most influential person at PCS, but you are influencing someone. And I would tell you, if this morning you would own the idea that the greatest determiner and the greatest deterrent in your life is you, the ceiling would come off. Lives would be changed because you would unleash what the lies of Satan have held you captive to believe that you are nothing. Several years later, I was at a camp and I was working, and I was up in Chicago. And once again, I'm starting to see how God is maybe possibly going to use me. And so I'm thinking about going into full-time ministry. And so instead of going home that summer, I went and worked at this camp. And this camp was kind of an interesting camp. You would either work 1 week, you would be res camp, so kids would come and they would hang out with you, and then they would go home at 4 o'clock. And then you would have kids that would come and they would stay the entire week. It was like a residential camp. And I remember the first week of this camp, I'd never done camp life before. I'd never been a counselor. I'm excited for what's going to happen, but once again, I'm not thinking I'm going to impact anybody. And the first camp I get, it's res camp, and I get the first kid that comes up to me. His name is Kenny. And I remember Kenny, I'm super excited. I'm like, I've never done this before. I have visions of what's going to happen. And Kenny walks up, and I'm like, hey, Kenny, I'm like, so good to see you at camp. And Kenny's like, man, I hate camp. And I'm like, awesome, Kenny, that's so cool to hear. I'm like, we are so excited. He's like, I'm not. And Kenny just started telling me his story. He's like, listen, my parents don't like me. My parents send me to camp every summer so they can get rid of me. He's like, I've been here before, I've done this before, I've had counselors, you're just the next one, and I'll be back next week, and there will be another one. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. This is going to be a great week of camp with Kenny. And we had these secret surprises every night. Like, one night we would do like a late night swim, and then we'd have like a raid the canteen one night. We had like all these secrets built in. And I'm like, oh man, Kenny, this week's going to be awesome. I'm like, we have all these different games and things, and he's like, tonight we're doing the late night swim. He's like, Tuesday we're raiding the canteen. And I'm like, dang it. I'm like, this kid knows everything. Sometimes I would forget what we're doing. I'm like, hey, Kenny, what are we doing tonight? You know, he's like, he knew more of the schedule than I did. And so all week, Kenny is just hating camp. He's like, please send me home. I hate this place. I'm like, I hate you. So if I could send you home, I would send you home. But the people that are above me, my bosses, my administrators, like, they're idiots because they will not send you home. But I have to. But I couldn't say that, so I'm like, I love you, Kenny. But I'm like, send him home. I'm like, this kid's crazy. One time, we were going to this event, and it was like multiple cabins, and so we were playing this game, and so like I'm taking my group down there, and we're playing this game, and I'm sitting on the sidelines, and I'm cheering my kids on, and I'm watching, and all of a sudden I see our director driving a golf cart to us. I'm like, oh, my director's coming. You know, so you got to be like on point when the director's coming, because you got to make sure everything's in line. And so I'm looking for all the kids, I'm getting everything directed, and I look back at the director, and she's driving, and Kenny's sitting in the passenger seat with her. I'm like, where can he go? And she pulls up, and she's like, hey, I found him walking down the highway. I'm like, dang it. I'm like, that's not where he's supposed to be. And I'm like, can we just let him keep walking? Like, I just let him go. I'm like, get rid of this kid. And so it was Wednesday afternoon, and I'm meeting with the directors, and I'm like, seriously, send Kenny home. Like, nobody in my cabin likes him. We're late to everything because I got to talk him into getting dressed. I got to talk him into going to the event. And then when he gets there, he leaves and walks down the highway. So if you could get rid of Kenny, that would be really awesome. And they were like, no, Kenny's going to stay. And so it's Thursday night. Oh, it's Thursday night. See, Thursday was the day, that was our Cry Day too. So that's the day we gave the gospel and people gave their lives to Christ. And so it's Thursday night, and they build this big fire, and all the cabins come around, and this guy gives the gospel message, and people meet Jesus Christ. And Kenny's like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, I don't want you to go. And he's like, we're just going to be the gospel. And he's like, there's just going to be a fire, and it's going to be stupid. And I'm like, I'm going to put you in the fire. Like, I hate you. Like, you are, seriously, like, you are the devil. Like, I hate you. And so I asked my director, I'm like, can I leave him? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I might do something if we go to the fire. So like, and they're like, no. And so I bring Kenny. So we have the option to kind of sit like with your cabin. But I'm like, okay, I'd be like, cabin C, we're sitting here. I'm like, Kenny, over there. You're just going to sit by yourself. So Kenny, he did. He goes sit by himself. And so we listen to the gospel message, and Kenny's there, and he's listening to it. And my group gets done, and I go off and I talk to him. And the last person I'm going to talk to is Kenny. We got to have one-on-one time with these brats. And so I sit down, and like every conversation with every kid in my cabin, it was so plastic. It was so basic. I mean, it was good. Like, I feel like God's telling me something. I'm like, oh, he's boring. You know, so I'm like, move on. And so I'm like, all right, it's Kenny's turn. And Kenny's just sitting there, and he's shaking. So I go up to Kenny. Did you forget to take your medicine? I'm like, what is your problem? And I'm like, let's go back to the cabin, Kenny. And he's like, can I just stay? I'm like, now you want to stay? I'm like, I'm going to get you here tonight. He goes, I just want to stay and I just want to listen. And that's the night that Kenny gave his life to Christ. And I had no idea what God was doing. I would have sent Kenny home Monday at 8:05 when he got there at 8 o'clock. I was done with Kenny. Thank you. I was done with Kenny. And Kenny was done with me. And Kenny was done with Jesus. But Jesus wasn't done with Kenny. And that's the day he gave his life to Christ. See, there are people here that you think God's never going to give me. And you know what's even funnier? Is there are some of you who are here that you're thinking, there's no way God's going to get that person. And I'm telling you what, you may be done with God, but he's not done with you. And it might be this week that you kind of go, you know what? I think there's something that God has for me. See, Saul didn't think he was good enough to make an impact on Israel. Saul didn't think he was good enough to be a king over Israel. Some of you are here this morning, you go, I'm not good enough. And I'm here to tell you, you are. And it doesn't matter what school you go to. It doesn't matter where you move to. It doesnn't matter your friends. It matters if you, inside of yourself, go, I believe that God's going to do something in my life. The biggest determiner and the biggest deterrent in your life is you. And when you learn that, and when you own that, you start to realize how God is going to use you. So it comes out that they want to talk to the king of Israel. And so Israel has decided we're going to anoint the king. And so here's Israel, and they're waiting as the king is supposed to come out. Saul is supposed to come out in all of his glory. And they gather around, and the trumpets blare. And Saul's nowhere to be found. So they blow the trumpets again. I don't know if that's how trumpets go, but that's what they did. And Saul is nowhere to be found. And so Samuel goes to God and he says, hey, where is the guy? Where is the anointed one? Where is the king of Israel? And God responds back, he's hiding in the baggage. And as I look out across this crowd, I wonder how many of you are hiding in the baggage. That there are so many things that are not happening at PCS because you will not step up and start the call that God has put on your heart. There's not a Bible study that's going on. There's not a worship leader that's happening because some of you are so afraid of the call that God has put on your heart. Some of you are so afraid because you think that you are not good enough for what God has called you to. And here's what I would say. If God has called you, he will equip you. And if God has put a passion in your heart and God has put a vision in your life, there is nobody that can tell you to not do it except for you. The greatest determiner and the greatest deterrent in your life is you. The reason you haven't started that job is not because it's the job's fault, it's because it's your fault. You're afraid. Saul was afraid he wasn't good enough. And so they call King Saul up in front of the people, and he stands in front of the people. And I remember this because he stands in front of them finally, and it says that he was God's anointed. He was taller than everybody else. The people shouted when he stood up, long live the king. You see, everybody believed in Saul. Except for Saul. And it's probably the same for you too. Everybody believes in you. Your parents believe in you. Your teachers believe in you. Your friends believe in you. Everybody around you is telling you, go for it. You can do this. I know that you can accomplish this. And yet many of you are here this morning, and the loudest voice in your life is this voice inside of you that's saying, no, you can't do it. And I'm here this morning to say, you need to tell that voice to shut up. Because that voice does not have control of your life anymore. The voice of God who has called you, the voice of God that has equipped you, is the voice that you should be listening to. I told you when I was in high school, I played basketball over at East Peoria, and we were a pretty competitive team. We had some great opportunities to play. We used to play Peoria Manual. Peoria Manual, my junior year, was the #1 team in the country. They were the #2 team around Christmas time, and went to a holiday tournament with them, and they played the #1 team out of Virginia at that time, and they beat them by 20 points. And so just a great time in Peoria basketball during that. We were always going up against them. We never had really any postseason success because we always played Peoria Manual in the regional championship game. And I remember that after that year, we lost to Peoria Manual. They went on to win their 4th state title. And I was playing in a summer league game. And most of you guys know this. Like, if you want to really get like a college scholarship, like, it really doesn't matter what you do during the season, because like coaches aren't at your games during the season. If you want to get a college scholarship, you got to go and play summer basketball. Well, I played golf in the summer, so I didn't play basketball a lot of time, but I knew like that was kind of what I needed to do. I didn't really want a college scholarship, but I wanted to play with my team. And so we're at this shootout, and we're playing in this game. It was the 3rd game in the tournament, and the Lord just showed His favor upon me. I played really well. I scored a lot of points, a lot of rebounds. Just played a really good all-around game. And so we're going back into the locker room, and my friends and I were talking. My friends are like, man, they're like, dude, you are going to get like tons of letters after that game. I mean, like, you just did a lot of things really well. There's going to be a lot of coaches that are going to write you because there were a lot of coaches at the game. And I was just, everything that my friend said, I was like, no. He's like, man, you scored a lot of points. I'm like, man, that team was soft. They're like, you had a lot of rebounds. I'm like, yeah, but that kid was blind. Like, I'm just like, everything that they said, like, I had a reason why it wasn't that important. Like, everything that they said, I nullified. They're like, man, you're 6'5", you can dribble, you can pass. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but I just kept saying, no, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And I remember one of my assistant coaches was behind me. I didn't know he was behind me. And I think he had gotten sick of it, not just in that conversation, but probably every interaction he and I had ever had. And he finally just whips me around. He gets in my face and he says, Paris, can you just take a compliment? And I wish I could go back to that moment. And I wish I knew what I know now, because I would say to him, no, I can't. Like, the thing that you need to understand is it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what my teachers say. It doesn't matter what my friends say. It doesn't matter if I get lots of letters in the mail from coaches. There's nobody that is going to tell me I'm good enough because I don't believe I'm good enough. So, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter what I say up here. It matters if you believe in yourself. The greatest determiner and the greatest deterrent for 2018 in your life is you. You hold all the power. You're the one that's going to determine this. My mother-in-law, she is probably like the most encouraging person in my life. She's probably watching right now. She live streams everything. She watches all my talks, and she's so encouraging. She'll be so positive. Hey, you did this really well. Once again, I found myself falling back into that high school mode where everything she says, I nullify. Man, that was a great sermon. I think it was a little too long. Man, that was a great sermon. I think it was a little too short. Were the kids engaged? They seemed engaged. I don't know. I think they were asleep. Everything that she said, I would just bat away. And I've noticed over time she's starting to get a little ticked to me. And I've noticed that she's not, and she's just a little frustrated with my compliments. And this summer we were back, I was speaking at Mission Peoria. Any Mission Peoria people out there? And so I was speaking at Mission Peoria, and we were back, and my parents are moving, and so we were like cleaning up their house and stuff. And I came across this old letter. It was a letter that my teacher in 3rd grade had written to my speech pathologist. I struggled in school in elementary. I had a couple tutors and speech pathologists. And my 3rd grade teacher had written this letter to my parents and also to my speech pathologist. And she wrote this in the letter. I found this so interesting. 3rd grade. 3rd grade, ladies and gentlemen, my teacher wrote, she said, one of the things we've noticed about Joe is that in an athletic event or an academic event, he will always announce to the class that he feels that he will not do well. And I thought in 3rd grade, I was already telling myself I wasn't good enough. It didn't matter what school I went to. It didn't matter who my friends were. It didn't matter who my parents were. I didn't believe in myself. It doesn't matter what everybody around you is saying until you believe the call that God has put on your life. Paul says this in 2 Corinthians. He says, take every thought captive. And I think what Paul was saying here is that every single day you're going to have good thoughts, you're going to have bad thoughts, you're going to have true thoughts, and you're going to have false thoughts. And here's what Paul says. When those thoughts come in, you have to determine if they are true and they are good. And if they are true and they are good, you will keep them in your mind. But if they are false and they are lies of the devil, you must cast them out. But somehow we are very passive in this, and we just think, well, I must not be good enough. I must not be smart enough. And yet it has nothing to do with any of the things around you. Your teachers tell you you're good enough. Your coach tells you you're good enough, and yet you will not believe that you are good enough. And you live in doubt and insecurity and embarrassment And yet you live these mediocre lives where you never impact the kingdom because you're afraid that you're not good enough. Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, as a man thinketh, so he is. As a man thinketh, so he is. If the thoughts that you think determine the person you become, what would happen today if we started to think positive thoughts about ourselves? Well, let me say that a little differently. What if we thought true thoughts about ourselves? What if we thought the things that God thought of us? What if we thought about ourselves the way that God thought about Saul? When Saul says, listen, I know that I'm not good enough. And God says, let me tell you something here, Saul. I'm not really cool with me not being the king over Israel. But if there is anybody in Israel that I think should do the job, Saul, I think it's you. The God of the universe said, Saul, you're the guy. You're the first king of Israel. You're the one I want to trust this to. And Saul says, I'm not good enough. When the God of the universe puts something on your heart, you listen to him. And some of you are here and you're like, there's no way I'm good enough for this. And God is saying, yes, you are. That's why I put it on you. I think you're the person to do this. I think you're the person to go off to this university. I think you're the person, this millennial, that's going to change the next generation. I think you're the person that's going to have an impact. And so the passion right now that is in your head and God has put on your heart, you need to entertain that. You need to stop listening to the inner voice and you need to start listening to what God has called you to believe. There's a researcher, her name is Dr. Carolyn Lee. She's in Dallas. Her daughter was actually one of my students, and we have revamped the way that we did education at the school because of Dr. Lee's research. She's a neuroscientist, so it means like she was really smart. Like neuroscientists are those people like they're like super smart and they didn't go to prom and stuff like that. But she is like wicked smart, and her daughter was wicked smart. Just an awesome family. Well, she's done these talks. She's been like on TED Talks. She's read several books. She's just on YouTube. She's amazing. But what she said was that her research shows that there's a difference between the brain and the mind. And the mind impacts the way that the brain operates. And what she said is that if you will start to think positive thoughts about yourself, you will start to see drastic improvement. Now, that was her hypothesis. Because as a researcher, you have to test that. You have to prove that. Because people will say, well, that's nice, but where's your data? Where's your science? And so she set up this research project where she took people who had traumatic brain injuries, from a car accident, from a ski accident, something happened to their brains. And what they found is that their IQ went up, or their IQ went down 20 to 40 points when they had a traumatic brain injury. Now, for IQs, let me just explain this to you. Like, if you have like a really low IQ, it's like 70, and like a really high IQ is like 140, like anything over 140. So like 140 is like Mr. Gerber, and like 70 is like Mr. Miller. Okay, so like, that's not true. Like 60 is Mr. Miller, and then like Gerber, and like so like the 140s are like Gerber and Baker, all those like the brilliant, and like the rest of us, we're like an 80 and 100. Like if you are just kind of like average mentality, you're somewhere between an 80 and 100. Up a point, down a point, that's kind of where you're at. And so what they found is people that had traumatic brain injuries, they went down 20 to 40 points, which would seem to make sense. I mean, you get your brain dinged, you're going to lose some intelligence. You always talk about people like, oh, he has a double, like he's just not thinking clearly. They found out that 20 to 40 points below. But Dr. Lee said, no, that's not how it is, because your brain is not your mind. Your mind impacts your brain. Your brain is an organ. Your brain is a physical thing. Your mind is a metaphysical thing. And the way that you think determines the way that your brain muscle operates. And so what she started doing was bringing in people who had traumatic brain injuries, and she started to point positive things to their life. Hey, you are actually really smart. You were actually really gifted. She just started telling people, listen, you don't remember, but man, you were like the smartest person I ever met. And you know what? People started to believe that they were the smartest person she had ever met. In her research, she found people that when they had a traumatic brain injury, they didn't get back to square. They went up 20 to 40 points. Think about that. People were at like an 80, then they got their brain dinged, and somebody started speaking positive things in their life. Hey, you're smart. You're tough. Like, you were the person that everyone wanted to be around. You were the person that had vision far beyond anybody else. And they started to believe that was true. And it changed the way that their brain operated. And if I were here this morning, I would tell you guys, if you want to change the way that you live your life, stop believing the things that you tell yourself and start believing true thoughts that God says about you. It'll change the way that you think. I was the golf coach here a couple years ago. I loved golf. Isaac was a golfer. And I've played golf pretty much my entire life. I love golf. It's the most amazing game. This summer, I picked up a book, and it's called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. And I've heard about this book for years. It's a psychological look at sports. It's not just for golf, but it's for all, but it's really geared towards golf. And Bob Rotella works with all athletes. And the whole premise of this book is like, if you want to do your best, you have to think your best. And so I read this book because I am really a person that struggles with doubt. I'm a person that talks myself out of so many things. I'm a person that doesn't believe that God can use me. And so I started reading this book, and the whole premise of this book is like, if you think that you're going to play bad golf, you're going to play bad golf. And if you think that you're going to play good golf, you're going to play good golf. And so it's this idea of like, you need to think positively. Before you go into a game, if you think that you're going to lose, the odds of you losing go up exponentially. Zig Ziglar once said this: if you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. And that is so true for all of us. If you believe in yourself, and I know this sounds a little new age and metaphysical, but there's so much truth to this. As a man thinks, so he is. And so in this book, he talks about a guy named Stuart Anderson. Stuart Anderson went to the University of Virginia. He was a really good high school basketball player. Stuart was at one of his conferences, and he said, hey, Stuart, tell us about how you think about mental competition, preparing yourself. And Stuart said, let me give you a story. I was in the regional championship in high school. He said, I was a 50-50 shooter. I made about 50, missed about 50. I was about an average shooter. And he says, so I go into the game, and I miss my first shot. But he says, I'm thinking to myself, hey, I missed my first shot. No big deal. I'll make the next one. He misses his first 5 shots. He misses his first 10 shots. He misses his first 20 shots. Comes down to 6 seconds left in the game. They're losing by 1. The coach calls a timeout, and he draws up a play for another player to shoot because Stewart had missed 20 shots in a row. And he says, I don't know why the coach did it. I don't know why the coach believed, but he, for some reason, changed the plan. He said, Stewart, you're going to take the last shot. And so the clock's winding down. 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds. Stewart comes around the screen. He catches the ball at the elbow. He rises up. He shoots the shot. He's missed 20 shots in a row. 2 seconds, 1 second, ball goes through the hoop, they win the regional championship. People are looking at Stewart, they're like, that's crazy. They're like, how in the world did you believe that you could make a shot when you missed 20 shots in a row? And he says, well, I'm a 50% shooter. So after I missed my first one, he said, I got to make the next one. And he said, after I missed my first 5, I thought, eventually I'll make it. He said, after I missed my first 20 shots, I thought to myself, I'm due to make one. I've got to make this. It's inevitable that I'm going to make this shot. And somebody asked a really good question in the crowd. They said, well, what if you would have made your first 20 shots? What would you thought then? He goes, man, I can't miss. I'm not going to miss this shot. And they said, that's not irrational. That doesn't make any sense. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Does it help you before you shoot the basketball to win the regional championship? Does it help you to believe that you're going to miss it? Or does it help you to believe that you're going to make it? Listen, I don't know how rational your dream is. I don't know how big the dream is God has given you. But I tell you what, this morning, you believing that you can't accomplish it doesn't help you. Doesn't get you where God has called you to be. I don't know if it's rational, I don't know if it's irrational, but I do know that as a man thinketh, so he is. If you believe in yourself, if you believe in the vision that God has given you, it changes the way that you live your life. And many people never reach the potential that God has given them because somewhere deep inside of them they say, you will never speak at Life Change Week. You're not good enough. You will never speak at Passion because you are not good enough. You will never speak at a large conference because you are just a little boy from East Peoria, Illinois, and nobody's ever going to want to hear you talk. And if you believe that, then that will become your reality. But if you go, no, what, God gave me a vision in my life. God gave me a passion. Man, I'm going for it. I don't care. I don't care if anybody tells me I can't do it. I don't believe. You know what? Honestly, people around me tell me I can't do it, but I know inside my heart I can't. But I'm going to tell that voice to shut up because I'm going to do what God has called me to do. When you start to believe what God says, you can start to do the things that God has called you to. Here's the craziest part of this story. Saul was a pretty mediocre, pretty bad king towards the end of his reign. The story of Saul comes up, and Samuel, he tells the story about how they're fighting against the Philistines, and the battle gets pretty intense, and Israel's losing, and so they're retreating back to the hills, and all of a sudden, his son Jonathan is killed, and Abinadab is killed, and Saul is retreating up this hill, and it says that the archers were strong, and one of the archers was able to actually shoot and puncture Saul. And so Saul's on top of this hill, knowing that he is fatally hit, knowing that he is mortally wounded, and he turns to his sword bearer and he says, hey, I want you to put a sword, I want you to kill me. And the sword bearer is like, I'm not killing the king of Israel. I'm not killing the God's anointed. I'm not doing that. And the Bible tells us that Saul took his own sword and he fell on it. You know who took down King Saul? Saul did. You know who's going to take you down? You will. It won't be your teachers. It won't be your parents. It won't be your friends. It'll be you. The reason that the dreams and the visions and the cast that God has put on your heart, the reason it's not happening right now is because of you. Many of you are sabotaging yourself because you cannot believe the passion and the call that God has on your life. If you remember one thing from this talk this morning, here's what I want you to remember. The greatest determiner and the greatest deterrent in your life is you. Let's pray. Lord, this morning I pray that you would silence the voice of doubt. Lord, for those that are here this morning, they have a vision, they have a dream, and they've never told a single person because they feel that it is too big and it is too impossible for them. Lord, I pray, Lord, that you would silence that voice of doubt. Lord, I pray that you would help us to be the type of people that believe what you have called us to do. Lord, you have called people to be kings of Israel, and yet we hide in the baggage. Lord, I pray this morning for those that have a vision to start a company, that have a vision to go off to school, that have a vision to start a ministry, or start a family, or start a relationship, or start something. Lord, I pray, Lord, that you would help them to believe the call that is on their life. Lord, that they would not talk themselves out of it, but that they would believe in the person that they have been called by. Lord, I pray that this year, Lord, we would be the type of people that would determine our future, not deter it. Lord, help us not to live these short-sighted dreams, Lord, this world where it's so manageable and it's so understandable, Lord, but help us to dream big dreams. Lord, I pray that you would help us to live the power of love and self-discipline, and not of fear. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. That's tough to wrestle with, isn't it? Knowing who you are, knowing your value, knowing if you are able by God's power to achieve the dreams He's called you to do. I want to wrestle with it as a team in your groups. And so, can I have Bree show where you're at, kind of? Leaders, have one of you go and find Bree and the other one start getting people set up in a circle. Take your chairs with you. You can sit in your chairs. Take a few minutes and talk through these questions together.